The sharp crack of a rifle echoed through the Montana wilderness as Emily Lawson ducked behind a fallen log, her heart hammering against her ribs. The stagecoach that had been carrying her to Helena lay overturned half a mile back, the driver and guard both dead, their scalped bodies a gruesome testament to the danger she now faced. It was 1875, and Emily had ventured west from Boston to claim the deed to her late uncle's property, never imagining she would find herself caught in Blackfoot territory during a time of escalating tensions between settlers and the native tribes. Blood trickled down Emily's temple from where she'd struck her head during the ambush. Her pale blue traveling dress was torn and mudded, her carefully pinned auburn hair now falling in loose waves around her shoulders. At 23, Emily had lived a sheltered life in Boston society, but she possessed a stubborn determination that had propelled her westward despite her parents' objections. "Please, God," she whispered, pressing her back against the rough bark as she heard the approaching sound of horses and men speaking in a language she couldn't understand. The footsteps grew closer. Emily held her breath, hoping against hope that somehow she would remain undiscovered. But fate had other plans. A shadow fell across her hiding place, and she looked up to see 3 Blackfoot warriors standing over her, their expressions stern and weapons ready. One of the men spoke sharply, gesturing with his rifle for Emily to stand. Her legs trembling beneath her, she rose slowly, hands raised in a gesture of surrender. The warriors conferred among themselves before the apparent leader motioned for her to walk ahead of them. "I don't understand what you want," Emily said, her voice quavering. "Please, I mean no harm." They did not respond except to urge her forward with gestures. Emily had no choice but to comply. They led her through dense forest until they reached a collection of horses. One warrior mounted and then reached down, roughly pulling Emily up behind him. The trio set off at a gallop, and Emily clung desperately to the warrior's waist, terrified of falling. As they rode, Emily's mind raced. She had heard horrifying tales of white captives, particularly women. Some were tortured, others adopted into tribes, and some became wives to warriors. The thought sent ice through her veins. She had come west seeking a new beginning after breaking her engagement to a man her parents had chosen, a wealthy banker 30 years her senior. Now she wondered if she would live to see another sunrise. Hours passed as they traveled deeper into Blackfoot territory. Emily's fear gave way to physical discomfort as the relentless pace of the horses jarred her body. Finally, as dusk approached, they crested a hill, and Emily saw a large encampment spread across the valley below. Dozens of tipis stood in a circular arrangement, with people moving about and smoke rising from cooking fires. As they rode into the camp, everyone stopped to stare. Children pointed, and women whispered behind their hands. Emily had never felt more exposed or vulnerable. She was brought before a large tipi adorned with painted symbols she couldn't decipher. The warriors dismounted and pulled her roughly from the horse. An older man emerged from the tipi. His face was deeply lined, his long hair streaked with gray, and he wore an elaborate headdress that marked him as someone of importance. He spoke at length with Emily's captors, occasionally glancing her way with hard, evaluating eyes. After what seemed an eternity, the older man nodded and gestured toward a smaller tipi. Emily was led there and pushed inside, where 2 women waited. They didn't speak to her but provided her with a blanket and a wooden bowl containing some kind of stew. Then they left, securing the tipi flap behind them. Emily sank to her knees, the gravity of her situation finally hitting her full force. She was a captive in a Blackfoot camp, with no idea what they planned for her, or if anyone would even know to look for her. Tears welled in her eyes, but she fought them back. She would need her wits about her if she hoped to survive. The next morning, Emily was awakened by the sound of commotion outside. She had slept fitfully, every sound startling her awake. The tippy flap was pulled back, and one of the women from the previous night entered, gesturing for Emily to follow. Outside, the camp was bustling with activity. Emily was led to a fire where several women were working. Through gestures, she was instructed to help prepare food. Although confused by this turn of events, Emily complied, hoping cooperation might improve her chances. As she worked alongside the women, Emily tried to communicate, pointing to herself and saying her name, but they largely ignored her overtures. Occasionally, she caught some of the younger women watching her curiously, but they quickly looked away when she noticed. Days passed in this manner. Emily was given chores, always under watch, always an outsider. She slept alone in the small tipi, which she learned was usually used for storage. No one harmed her, but neither was she treated with kindness. She was simply there, a curiosity, perhaps a pawn in some larger conflict she didn't understand. On her 5th day of captivity, Emily was collecting water from a stream near the camp when she saw a rider approaching from the distance. Even from afar, she could tell he was not Blackfoot. He rode tall in the saddle, wearing a wide-brimmed hat, denim trousers, and a leather vest over a cotton shirt. A cowboy. Hope surged through Emily's chest, but it was quickly tempered by reality. What could one man do against an entire Blackfoot camp? Still, she watched with rapt attention as he rode directly toward the encampment, seemingly unafraid. The warrior guarding Emily noticed the approaching rider too and called out to others in the camp. Soon, several men had gathered at the perimeter, weapons ready but not yet raised. To Emily's astonishment, when the cowboy drew closer, he called out to them in their own language. The exchange that followed was incomprehensible to Emily, but she could see the Blackfoot warrior's surprise. They responded cautiously, and a conversation ensued. The cowboy dismounted but kept a respectful distance. He removed his hat, revealing sandy brown hair that caught the sunlight. He continued to speak in the Blackfoot language, his tone respectful but firm. After some discussion, the cowboy was escorted into the camp, directly to the tipi of the older man Emily had seen upon her arrival, the chief, she presumed. The guard motioned for Emily to return to her chores, but she found it impossible to focus, her mind fixed on the mysterious cowboy who spoke the Blackfoot tongue. Hours passed with no sign of the cowboy re-emerging from the chief's tipi. Night fell, and Emily was returned to her own small dwelling, her heart heavy with dashed hopes. She had begun to dream that perhaps this stranger might somehow secure her freedom, but as darkness enveloped the camp, that dream seemed to fade. She was startled from her thoughts by the sound of the tipi flap being pushed aside. Expecting one of the women who usually brought her evening meal, Emily was shocked to see the cowboy ducking into her small space. "Miss Lawson," he said in a low voice, his eyes a striking shade of green finding hers in the dim light. "Yes," she breathed, hardly able to believe he was addressing her. "How do you know my name?" "Name's Lucas Maddox," he said, settling across from her. "I've been tracking the stagecoach attack for 2 days. Found your luggage among the wreckage, saw the name on your trunk." His voice was deep and carried a slight southern drawl. "I'm here to negotiate your release." Emily's heart leaped. Will they let me go?" Lucas ran a hand through his hair. "It's complicated. The Blackfoot have grievances against white settlers, and with good reason. There's been encroachment on their hunting grounds, treaties violated. They see holding you as a form of justice or leverage." "But I've done nothing to them," Emily protested. "No, you haven't," Lucas agreed. But in their eyes, you represent the people who have wronged them. I've started discussions with Chief Running Elk. He's a reasonable man, but this will take time and delicate negotiation." Emily studied the man before her. He appeared to be in his early 30s, with a face weathered by sun and wind, yet handsome in a rugged way. His hands were calloused, his frame lean and muscular. "How is it that you speak their language?" she asked. A shadow passed over Lucas's face. "My mother was Crow. Different tribe, but I grew up learning several native languages. My father was a trapper who actually respected the people whose land he worked on." There was a hint of bitterness in his tone. Not many white men can say the same. Emily absorbed this information, seeing Lucas in a new light. "And the Blackfoot trust you because of this?" "Trust would be stretching it," Lucas said with a slight smile. "Let's say they're willing to listen because I show them respect and speak to them in their own tongue. Chief Running Elk knows I've dealt fairly with his people in the past." "What happens now?" Emily asked, unable to keep the tremor from her voice. "I'll continue talks tomorrow. For now, I've secured permission to speak with you to assure myself of your welfare." His eyes scanned her face, noting the fading bruise on her temple. "Have they treated you poorly?" "No," Emily admitted. "They've given me food and shelter. No one has harmed me, but I'm afraid, Mr. Maddox. I don't know what they want from me or what will happen." Lucas nodded solemnly. "That's understandable. But I give you my word, Miss Lawson, I will do everything in my power to see you safely return to civilization." "Why would you do this for a stranger?" Emily asked, genuinely curious. Lucas was quiet for a moment. "Because it's the right thing to do," he finally said. "And because I've seen too much suffering come from misunderstandings between my mother's people and my father's. If I can prevent more bloodshed, I will." The sincerity in his voice touched something in Emily. For the first time since the attack on the stagecoach, she felt a glimmer of real hope. "Thank you," she whispered. Lucas rose to leave. "Try to rest. Cooperate with them as you have been. I'll return when I can." After he left, Emily wrapped herself in her blanket, her mind whirling with this new development. Lucas Maddox was unlike any man she had ever met in Boston's refined society. He moved between two worlds with an ease she found remarkable. And despite her dire circumstances, Emily found herself curious about this cowboy with the green eyes and the gift for languages. The next day brought no opportunity to speak with Lucas again, though Emily caught glimpses of him in the camp, deep in conversation with the chief and other tribal elders. She continued her assigned tasks, now with renewed purpose, knowing that someone was advocating for her freedom. On the third day since Lucas's arrival, Emily was summoned to the chief's tipi. Her heart raced as she was led inside, where she found Chief Running Elk seated with several elders, and Lucas standing to one side. Lucas nodded reassuringly to her before addressing her in English. "Miss Lawson, Chief Running Elk wishes to understand why you were traveling through their territory." Emily straightened her shoulders. "Please tell him I was on my way to Helena to claim property left to me by my uncle. I meant no trespass or disrespect to his people." Lucas translated, and there followed a lengthy exchange that Emily couldn't follow. The atmosphere in the tipi was tense, with occasional raised voices, though Lucas remained calm throughout. Finally, Lucas turned back to her. "The chief says many white people claim ownership of land that has belonged to the Blackfoot for generations. They see little difference between you and those who have driven buffalo from their hunting grounds or built fences across sacred spaces." Emily felt a rush of indignation. "But I've never done such things. The property in Helena was a small store my uncle operated. It's in the town, not on their lands." After Lucas translated, Chief Running Elk spoke again, his voice deep and measured. "He says intentions matter less than actions." Lucas explained. But he is willing to consider releasing you under certain conditions. What conditions? Emily asked warily. First, that you carry a message to the territorial governor about recent violations of their treaty rights. Second, that you provide something of value in exchange for your freedom. Emily's heart sank. I have very little with me. My trunk contained some jewelry, but I don't know if it survived the attack. When Lucas relayed this, one of the elders spoke up animatedly. They found your trunk, Lucas told her. They have your possessions. But they're not interested in trinkets. They want medicine, ammunition, and certain trade goods that are difficult for them to obtain. How am I supposed to provide such things while I'm their captive? Emily asked, frustration evident in her voice. Lucas took a deep breath. That's where I come in. I've offered to secure these items in exchange for your immediate release into my custody. Emily stared at him, astonished by his generosity. Mr. Maddox, I couldn't possibly allow you to bear such an expense on my behalf. It's not charity, Miss Lawson, Lucas said firmly. You can repay me once you're settled in Helena. I'm simply expediting matters. After more discussion, Chief Running Elk nodded gravely and spoke directly to Emily for the first time, with Lucas translating. He says you will be released tomorrow at dawn. I am to take you to Helena, where I will fulfill my promise to bring back the requested items. Until then, you remain under their protection. Emily could hardly believe what she was hearing. Protection? Is that how they view my captivity? Lucas's expression was complex. In their view, yes. They could have killed you as they did the others on the stagecoach. Instead, they brought you here, fed you, sheltered you. By their standards, that is protection. Emily wanted to argue but saw the wisdom in accepting this interpretation. Please convey my gratitude to the chief for his protection and for agreeing to my release. After Lucas translated, Chief Running Elk responded with a brief nod. The meeting was concluded and Emily was escorted back to her tipi. That night, sleep eluded Emily. The prospect of freedom filled her with nervous excitement, but questions plagued her. Could she trust Lucas Maddox? What if the Blackfoot changed their minds? And even if she did reach Helena safely, what kind of life awaited her there? She had come west seeking independence, but her ordeal had shown her just how vulnerable a woman alone could be on this frontier. Dawn arrived with a pale golden light filtering through the tipi covering. Emily had been given back her own clothing, cleaned and mended by one of the women. She dressed quickly, her fingers fumbling with unfamiliar buttons after days in Blackfoot attire. Outside, she found Lucas already mounted on his horse, with a second horse saddled and waiting. Several warriors, including those who had initially captured her, stood watching. Chief Running Elk emerged from his tipi and approached Emily. Through Lucas's translation, the chief delivered a formal speech about remembering her promise to convey their message to the territorial governor. He then presented her with a small pouch containing what Lucas explained was a protective charm, a gesture that surprisingly moved Emily. "Thank you," she said, accepting the gift with a small bow of her head. "I will keep my promise." With Lucas's help, Emily mounted the second horse, a gentle mare with a chestnut coat. Her trunk, miraculously intact though missing her more valuable items, was secured behind Lucas's saddle. With a final exchange of words between Lucas and the chief, they rode out of the camp. Emily didn't look back, afraid that somehow the sight of her departure might cause the Blackfoot to change their minds. Only when they had ridden for nearly an hour did she allow herself to fully believe that she was truly free. "How far is it to Helena?" she asked Lucas, who rode slightly ahead, his eyes constantly scanning their surroundings. 4 days' ride if the weather holds, he answered. "We'll stop at a trading post I know tomorrow night, Get you some proper supplies." Emily nodded, grateful but still wary. "Mr. Maddox, I'm deeply indebted to you for your intervention, but I must ask, why would a man go to such lengths for a stranger? The goods you promised the Blackfoot must be worth a considerable sum." Lucas was quiet for a long moment. "Like I said before, it's the right thing to do. And I've seen too many conflicts between settlers and natives escalate because no one was willing to step in and find a peaceful solution." He glanced back at her. "Besides, I figure a lady with property in Helena can afford to reimburse me eventually." There was a hint of humor in his voice that Emily found reassuring. "Indeed, I can and will," she assured him. "My uncle's general store may be modest, but I've been told it's profitable." "Nathaniel Lawson's place?" Lucas asked, surprising her. "Yes, you knew my uncle." "Everybody in Montana Territory knew Nate Lawson," Lucas said. "Fair businessman, treated everyone the same whether they were a banker or a half-breed like me. Sorry to hear of his passing." Emily was touched by this description of her uncle, whom she had only met a handful of times as a child. "I barely knew him. He and my father had a falling out many years ago. It was a shock when his lawyer contacted me about the inheritance." "Well, you're inheriting more than just a store," Lucas informed her. "Your uncle was respected in Helena. That counts for something in these parts." They rode in comfortable silence for a while, the rhythm of the horses' hooves creating a soothing backdrop. Emily found herself studying Lucas's profile when he wasn't looking: the strong jaw covered with several days' growth of beard, the straight nose, the way his hat cast a shadow over his eyes. "May I ask how you came to be in this area at such a fortuitous time, Mr. Maddox?" Emily eventually asked. "Lucas, please," he said. "Out here, formality doesn't count for much." He adjusted his hat before continuing. "I work as a scout and translator for the territory sometimes. Was heading back from Fort Benton when I heard about the stagecoach attack. Decided to investigate, see if there were any survivors. And instead you found me a captive," Emily said softly. Lucas nodded. "Found signs of the attack, followed the Blackfoot trail. Wasn't hard to guess they'd taken someone when I found your trunk, but no body among the dead." His voice was matter of fact, but Emily could see a shadow cross his face at the memory. "Those poor men," Emily murmured, thinking of the stagecoach driver and guard. "They didn't stand a chance." "No, they didn't," Lucas agreed grimly. "The Blackfoot have been pushed to the edge of desperation by broken promises and encroachment on their lands. Doesn't excuse killing innocent men, but it explains their anger." Emily considered this perspective, so different from the simplistic views of savage Indians she had heard in Boston drawing rooms. "You see both sides of this conflict very clearly. When you're half of each, you don't have much choice," Lucas said, a touch of bitterness in his tone. They made camp that evening in a sheltered hollow near a small stream. Lucas efficiently built a fire and prepared a simple meal of jerky, hardtack, and coffee. Emily, raised with servants attending to such tasks, watched with interest as he moved with practiced ease. "I'm afraid I'm not much use at camping," she admitted as she accepted the tin cup of coffee he offered. "My education focused more on watercolors and piano than outdoor survival." Lucas smiled, the expression transforming his serious face. "Well, Miss Lawson—" "Emily, please," she interrupted. "As you said, formality seems rather out of place here." "Emily," he amended, his smile widening. "I reckon you'll learn quick enough if you're planning to stay in Montana Territory. It's not Boston out here." "No, it certainly isn't," she agreed, looking up at the vast canopy of stars overhead, more brilliant than she had ever seen them back east. "It's beautiful, though, in a wild way." "That it is," Lucas said, following her gaze upward. "Takes a special kind of person to see the beauty in this harsh land." They talked long into the evening, Emily sharing stories of her life in Boston and her decision to leave it all behind, Lucas offering tales of his experiences straddling two worlds. He told her how his father had met his mother when he was trapped in a blizzard and she saved his life, how they had defied convention to marry, and how both had died of smallpox when Lucas was 16, leaving him to make his own way. "So you became a cowboy?" Emily asked. "Among other things," Lucas replied. "Worked cattle drives, scouted for the army, guided hunting parties, whatever paid. Learned to use the languages my mother taught me to broker understanding when I could." "It's remarkable," Emily said sincerely, "what you did for me." Speaking to the Blackfoot, understanding their grievances while still securing my release. Not many men would have had the ability or inclination to do that. Lucas looked uncomfortable with her praise. "Get some rest," he said, changing the subject. "We've got a long ride tomorrow." Emily settled into the bedroll he had provided, watching as Lucas took first watch, his silhouette outlined against the starlit sky. For the first time since the stagecoach attack, she felt truly safe. The next day's journey brought them to the trading post Lucas had mentioned, a sturdy log structure nestled in a small clearing. The proprietor, a grizzled man named Fergus McCready, greeted Lucas like an old friend and regarded Emily with undisguised curiosity. "So you're Nate Lawson's niece," he said after Lucas explained their situation in vague terms, omitting the details of her captivity. "He spoke of you sometimes, said you had a good head for figures." "Did he?" Emily was touched that her uncle had mentioned her at all, let alone positively. "Indeed." "Said if his brother hadn't been such a stubborn fool, you might have come west years ago and helped him run the store," McCready chuckled. Nate wasn't one to mince words. Emily smiled, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. "Well, I'm here now, late though it may be." McCready provided them with supplies, including a dress for Emily that, while plain and somewhat large, was clean and whole. She changed gratefully, feeling more like herself in proper attire. That night they stayed in small but private rooms at the trading post. Emily reveled in the luxury of washing with hot water and sleeping in a real bed, however humble. In the morning, rested and refreshed, they continued their journey toward Helena. The next 2 days passed in a similar fashion, riding by day and camping by night. Emily found herself increasingly drawn to Lucas's quiet strength and thoughtfulness. He was unlike any man she had known, straightforward yet complex, capable yet kind. She caught him watching her sometimes with an expression she couldn't quite decipher, but which made her heart beat a little faster. On the afternoon of the 4th day, they crested a hill and saw Helena spread before them in the valley below, a bustling mining town with wooden buildings lining its main street and tendrils of smoke rising from chimneys. "There it is," Lucas said. "Your new home." Emily felt a flutter of nervousness. "It looks larger than I expected. It's grown fast since gold was discovered nearby," Lucas explained. "Your uncle's store is on Last Chance Gulch. That's the main street. Good location." They rode into town, attracting curious glances. Emily was acutely aware of her borrowed dress and wind-blown appearance. Lucas led them directly to a 2-story wooden building with a sign reading Lawson's General Merchandise. A smaller sign in the window declared, "Closed due to bereavement." Lucas dismounted and helped Emily down from her horse. As her feet touched the ground, she felt a momentary dizziness, whether from the long ride or the emotional impact of finally reaching her destination. She wasn't sure. Lucas steadied her with a hand at her elbow, and the contact sent an unexpected warmth through her. "Thank you," she murmured, looking up to find his green eyes studying her intently. "Miss Lawson, is that you?" a voice called, breaking the moment. They turned to see an elderly man hurrying toward them from across the street. He introduced himself as Harold Winters, the lawyer who had written to Emily about her inheritance. "We'd nearly given up hope when you didn't arrive on the stagecoach," Winters said, looking between Emily and Lucas with obvious curiosity. "Then word came about the attack. We feared the worst." "Mr. Maddox rescued me," Emily said simply, not wanting to delve into the full story in the middle of the street. "He's been kind enough to escort me safely to Helena." Winters eyed Lucas with new respect. "Then the town owes you a debt of gratitude, sir." Nathaniel Lawson was beloved here, and his niece's safe arrival matters to many. Lucas tipped his hat modestly. "Just happened to be in the right place." Winters insisted on taking them to his office immediately to sort out the legalities of Emily's inheritance. The store, a small house behind it, and a modest sum of money were now hers. By the time all the paperwork was signed, evening had fallen. "You must be exhausted," Winters said to Emily. "Let me show you to your uncle's house, your house now. Everything is as he left it." Emily turned to Lucas, suddenly reluctant to part from the man who had been her protector these past days. "Will you come as well?" I still need to arrange payment for your assistance." A flicker of something disappointment crossed Lucas's face. "No need to settle accounts tonight." "You should rest. I'll find a room at the hotel." "Nonsense," Winters interjected. "Mr. Maddox, I insist you join us for dinner at my home. My wife would never forgive me if I didn't properly thank Miss Lawson's rescuer." Lucas hesitated, then nodded his acceptance. Emily was shown to her uncle's house, a simple but comfortable dwelling with worn but good quality furniture. A middle-aged woman named Mrs. Hollies, who had kept the place in order since Nathaniel's death, helped Emily freshen up and loaned her a more suitable dress for dinner at the Winters home. The evening passed pleasantly, with Winters and his wife making Emily feel welcome and treating Lucas with genuine respect. Despite his mixed heritage, something Emily gathered was not universal in Helena. Throughout the meal, Emily found her gaze repeatedly drawn to Lucas. Cleaned up and dressed in a fresh shirt borrowed from Winters, he was strikingly handsome, though clearly uncomfortable with the social niceties. As the evening wound down, the question of Lucas's continued presence in Helena hung unspoken in the air. He had fulfilled his promise to deliver Emily safely, but the matter of her debt to him, both the financial obligation for the goods promised to the Blackfoot and her personal gratitude, remained unresolved. When they said their good nights, Emily impulsively caught Lucas's hand. "Will I see you tomorrow? There's still the matter of our arrangement." "I'll come by the store in the morning," he promised, his fingers warm around hers. That night, alone in her uncle's house, Emily found sleep elusive. Her mind kept returning to Lucas, his quiet strength, his understanding of both the white and native worlds, the way his rare smiles transformed his face. She had come west seeking independence, not romance, and yet she couldn't deny the attraction she felt. Morning brought sunshine streaming through unfamiliar windows. Emily rose early, eager to explore the store that was now hers. Mrs. Hollies arrived with fresh bread and helped Emily dress in one of her own gowns, altered hastily the night before to fit Emily's smaller frame. "Your uncle kept everything in fine order," Mrs. Hollies explained as they entered the store through a back door. "Had a young man helping him, Timothy Grant, who's been minding things since your uncle passed. Good boy, honest." The store was larger than Emily had envisioned, well stocked with everything from dry goods to tools, clothing to ammunition. A ledger on the counter showed meticulous bookkeeping, confirming what Lucas had said about Nathaniel Lawson's fair business practices. Timothy Grant arrived promptly at 8, a gangly youth of perhaps 19 who seemed simultaneously relieved and intimidated by Emily's presence. "Miss Lawson, it's an honor to meet you," he said, removing his cap. "Your uncle spoke highly of you." "Thank you, Timothy. I hope you'll continue to work here and help me learn the business," Emily replied, already seeing that she would need assistance to manage the store. Timothy beamed. "Yes, madam, happy to." They spent the morning taking inventory, with Timothy explaining the store's operations. Emily was impressed by her uncle's foresight in stocking items that appealed to the diverse population of Helena miners, townsfolk, and even native customers. Shortly before noon, the bell above the door jingled, and Lucas walked in. Emily's heart leaped at the sight of him, then sank slightly when she noticed he was wearing his trail gear, clearly prepared for travel. "Good morning," she greeted him, trying to keep her tone light. "Timothy, this is Mr. Maddox, the gentleman who escorted me safely to Helena." Timothy nodded respectfully to Lucas, who returned the gesture before addressing Emily. "Store looks good," he commented, glancing around. "Your uncle always kept a fine establishment." "Yes, I'm discovering that," Emily said. "Timothy has been explaining everything to me." She hesitated, then added, "Would you join me for lunch? We still have business to discuss." Lucas agreed, and they walked to a small restaurant nearby. Once seated, Emily broached the subject directly. "I owe you a considerable sum for the goods you promised the Blackfoot," she began. "I'm prepared to pay whatever is necessary." Lucas studied her for a moment. "The items Chief Running Elk requested will cost about $200, he said. "But there's no rush. I know you're just getting settled." "I can pay you now," Emily insisted. "My uncle left me some money as well as the store, but I'm curious, how will you deliver these goods? Surely you don't intend to return to the Blackfoot camp alone." "That's exactly what I intend," Lucas said calmly. "I gave my word." Alarm shot through Emily. "But it's dangerous." "What if they decide to hold you responsible for the attack on their people?" "They won't," Lucas assured her. "I've dealt with Running Elk before. He's a man of honor, as am I." Emily realized with a sinking feeling that Lucas was preparing to leave, perhaps as soon as today. The thought distressed her more than she wanted to admit. "When do you plan to go?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "Tomorrow morning," Lucas replied. "I need to purchase the promised items today." "I'll come with you," Emily decided impulsively. "It's my debt, after all." Lucas looked surprised but didn't object. Together, they spent the afternoon gathering the items Chief Running Elk had requested: medicines, ammunition, tobacco, and trade goods. Emily insisted on paying for everything immediately, drawing from the funds her uncle had left her. As they worked, Emily found herself watching Lucas interact with the shopkeepers and townspeople of Helena. Some treated him with respect, clearly familiar with him from previous visits. Others were coldly polite at best, openly disdainful at worst, particularly when they noticed his mixed heritage. Lucas bore both reactions with the same stoic dignity. Only once did Emily see him react, when a drunk miner spat at his feet and muttered "half-breed" as they passed. Lucas's jaw tightened, but he simply steered Emily to the other side of the street. "Does that happen often?" she asked quietly. "Often enough," Lucas replied. "It's why I prefer the trail to towns most times." Emily felt a rush of indignation on his behalf. "It's despicable." Lucas gave her a sideways glance. "Most folks back east wouldn't see it different." "I do," Emily said firmly. "My father may have arranged for me to marry a banker 30 years my senior for financial security, but he at least taught me to judge people by their character, not their birth." This drew a genuine smile from Lucas. "Is that why you broke your engagement? Your intended was lacking in character." "No," Emily admitted. Mr. Harrington was perfectly respectable, just perfectly dull as well, with no interest in my opinions or desires beyond ensuring I could manage his household appropriately. Lucas chuckled. Hard to imagine anyone finding your opinions uninteresting, Miss Lawson. Emily, she reminded him. And thank you, I think. By late afternoon, they had acquired everything on the list and arranged for it to be delivered to the livery stable where Lucas would collect it in the morning. They walked back toward Emily's store in the golden light of approaching sunset. "Will you stay for dinner?" Emily asked as they reached the store's entrance. "Mrs. Holly's is preparing a roast, and there's certainly enough for 3. Lucas hesitated, and Emily wondered if she had overstepped some boundary, but then he nodded. "I'd be honored." Dinner was a pleasant affair, with Mrs. Holly's excellent cooking and conversation that flowed more easily than Emily expected. Lucas spoke of his travels throughout the territory, while Emily shared stories of her journey west and her plans for the store. Mrs. Holly's, initially reserved around Lucas, warmed to him when he complimented her cooking with genuine appreciation. After the meal, Mrs. Holly's tactfully retired to her room in the back of the house, leaving Emily and Lucas alone in the small parlor. A slightly awkward silence fell between them. "I should go," Lucas said, rising from his chair. "Early start tomorrow." Emily stood as well, suddenly desperate to find a reason for him to stay, or better yet, a reason for him not to leave Helena at all. "Lucas, I've been thinking. The store needs expansion. Timothy is a good clerk, but I could use someone who understands both the white settlers and the native customers, someone who speaks their languages." Lucas looked at her with surprise. "Are you offering me a job?" "Yes," Emily said, gaining confidence. "A partnership, actually. You have knowledge and skills I lack. Together, we could make Lawson's the most successful establishment in Helena." For a moment, hope flared in Lucas's eyes, but then he shook his head. "I'm not a shopkeeper, Emily. I'm a man who belongs on the trail, not behind a counter." "You could still travel," Emily pressed. "Make purchasing trips, negotiate with native traders. You wouldn't be confined to the store." Lucas studied her face intently. "Is this offer purely business?" The directness of the question caught Emily off guard. She felt heat rise in her cheeks. I value your friendship," she said carefully. "And yes, I find myself drawn to you, but the business proposal stands on its own merits." Lucas stepped closer, close enough that Emily could see the flecks of gold in his green eyes. "You should know that many in this town wouldn't approve of such an arrangement, a refined Boston lady in business with a half-breed cowboy." "I don't care what they approve of," Emily said with sudden fierceness. "I came west to escape others dictating my life." A ghost of a smile touched Lucas's lips. "You're not what I expected, Emily Lawson." "Is that good or bad?" she asked, her heart pounding. "Good," he said softly. "Definitely good." For a breathless moment, Emily thought he might kiss her. Instead, he took her hand and pressed it gently. "I need to think about your offer. It's unexpected." Emily nodded, trying to hide her disappointment. "Of course. Will you let me know before you leave?" "I will," Lucas promised. Then, with a tip of his hat, he was gone, leaving Emily standing in the parlor with her thoughts in turmoil. She barely slept that night, alternating between hope that Lucas might accept her proposal and fear that she had been too forward, too revealing of her growing feelings. By dawn, she was up and dressed, determined to see him before he departed. Emily hurried to the livery stable just as the first rays of sunlight touched Helena's Main Street. She found Lucas already there, securing the promised goods on a pack horse while his own mount stood saddled nearby. "Lucas," she called softly. He turned, surprised but not displeased to see her. "Emily, you're up early." "I wanted to see you before you left," she said, suddenly feeling awkward. "Have you considered my proposal?" Lucas finished tightening a strap before answering. I have, and I'm honored by your offer, truly. Emily's heart sank at his tone. But you're declining. I need time, Lucas said. This journey to the Blackfoot camp will give me that. When I return, if I return, we can discuss it further. If, Emily repeated, alarmed, you said there was no danger. There's always danger on the frontier, Lucas replied matter-of-factly. But I've given my word to deliver these goods, and a man is only as good as his word. Emily bit her lip, fighting back a sudden urge to beg him not to go. How long will you be gone? 2 weeks, perhaps 3, Lucas estimated. Depends on weather, terrain, whether the Blackfoot have moved their camp. Emily nodded, trying to appear composed despite the emotions churning inside her. I'll pray for your safe return. Lucas stepped closer and, to her surprise, gently touched her cheek. I've known you less than 2 weeks, Emily Lawson, but you've made quite an impression. Before she could respond, he leaned down and pressed his lips to hers in a brief, tender kiss. When he pulled back, his eyes were dark with an emotion Emily couldn't name but felt echoed in her own heart. That's something to come back for, he said quietly. Then he mounted his horse, tipped his hat to her one last time, and rode out of Helena with the pack horse trailing behind him. Emily watched until he was out of sight, her fingers touching her lips where the warmth of his kiss still lingered. The days that followed were a blur of activity as Emily threw herself into learning the business. Timothy proved invaluable, teaching her about inventory, pricing, and the preferences of various customers. She introduced herself to the townspeople who frequented the store, winning them over with her genuine interest in their lives and her fair business practices traits she consciously modeled after what she'd learned of her uncle. Word of her ordeal with the Blackfoot and Lucas's role in her rescue spread through Helena, bringing curious customers who came to see the captive lady, but often left having purchased goods, and with a new respect for Nathaniel Lawson's niece. Emily was careful in what details she shared, emphasizing that most Blackfoot were not hostile, and that Chief Running Elk had treated her with as much dignity as the circumstances allowed. Some disapproved of her defense of the natives, but others, particularly those who had lived in the territory longer and had trading relationships with various tribes, appreciated her nuanced perspective. As the first week passed, Emily expanded the store's inventory to include items that might appeal specifically to native customers and women goods her uncle hadn't stocked in large quantities. She wrote to suppliers in St. Louis and San Francisco, planning for the future. Yet despite her busy days, her thoughts often turned to Lucas. Each night, she found herself wondering where he was, whether he was safe, if he was thinking of her as well. The brief kiss they had shared seemed to have unlocked something within her, a capacity for feeling she hadn't known she possessed. In her second week in Helena, Emily received an unexpected visitor, a Blackfoot woman named Morning Sky, who entered the store hesitantly, clearly uncertain of her welcome. Using a combination of broken English and gestures, she explained that she was Chief Running Elk's sister and had come to trade furs. Emily welcomed her warmly, relieved when Timothy was able to help with translation. During their transaction, Morning Sky mentioned Lucas, indicating that he was known to her people as man who speaks truth. Lucas Maddox, Emily asked eagerly. Have you seen him? Is he well? Through Timothy's translation, Morning Sky explained that Lucas had indeed reached their camp safely and delivered the promised goods. He had stayed for several days, participating in council meetings, where he spoke eloquently about the need for peace between the Blackfoot and the settlers. He leave 4 sons ago, Morning Sky said in halting English. Say he return Helena soon. Emily's heart leaped at this news. Thank you, she said sincerely, pressing Morning Sky's hand in gratitude. After the woman left, Emily calculated the days. If Lucas had left the Blackfoot camp 4 days ago, he might return to Helena within a day or two, assuming no delays. The thought filled her with nervous anticipation. That evening, Emily sat in her her parlor, attempting to focus on the store's ledgers but finding her mind wandering repeatedly to Lucas. A knock at the door startled her from her reverie. Mrs. Hollis had already retired for the night, so Emily went to answer it herself, a small flutter of hope in her chest. Instead of Lucas, however, she found Harold Winters on her doorstep, looking grave. "Miss Lawson, may I come in? There's a matter we need to discuss." Concerned by his tone, Emily invited him into the parlor. "Is something wrong, Mr. Winters?" The lawyer hesitated before speaking. "It's about Mr. Maddox. Word has reached town that he was ambushed on his return journey from the Blackfoot camp. A hunting party found him yesterday about 20 miles north of here." Emily felt as though the floor had dropped away beneath her feet. Is he dead?" she whispered, unable to form the words properly. "No," Winters said quickly, "but he's been badly injured. The hunters brought him to Doc Sullivan's place on the edge of town about an hour ago." Emily was already reaching for her shawl. "I must go to him. Please, will you take me there?" Winters seemed uncomfortable but nodded. "Of course. But Miss Lawson, I should warn you. There's talk in town about your interest in Mr. Maddox. Some find it inappropriate given his heritage." Emily fixed him with a steely gaze. "Mr. Winters, I have the greatest respect for you, but I care nothing for such talk. Lucas Maddox saved my life at risk to his own. Now he's been injured, possibly because of his connection to me. I will go to him, and those who disapprove can gossip to their heart's content." Winters looked at her with newfound respect. "Your uncle would be proud of your spirit, Miss Lawson. Let's go, Doctor." Sullivan's house doubled as his medical practice, with a small surgery and recovery room attached to his living quarters. The doctor, a gruff man in his 50s, met them at the door. "Miss Lawson," he acknowledged, "I figured you'd come when you heard." "How is he?" Emily asked anxiously. "Stable," Sullivan replied. "Took a bullet to the shoulder and another grazed his side, lost a fair amount of blood, but he's tough. Fever's the concern now." "May I see him?" Emily asked. Sullivan hesitated. "He's not fully conscious, please," Emily said. "I need to see him." The doctor sighed but led her to a small room at the back of the house. Lucas lay on a narrow bed, his normally tan complexion pale, his upper body wrapped in bandages. Emily moved to his side immediately, taking his hand in hers. It was hot with fever, but his fingers instinctively curled around hers. "Lucas," she said softly, "it's Emily, I'm here." His eyelids fluttered and he seemed to struggle toward consciousness. "Emily," he murmured, his voice barely audible, "danger. Renegades, not Blackfoot." "SHH," she soothed, stroking his forehead. "Don't try to talk, you're safe now." Lucas's eyes opened briefly, fever bright but lucid. "Didn't want to die without seeing you again." Tears welled in Emily's eyes. "You're not going to die, I won't allow it." A ghost of a smile touched his lips before he drifted back into unconsciousness. Emily turned to Dr. Sullivan. "What can I do?" "Not much, I'm afraid. Keep the fever down with cool compresses. I've removed the bullets and cleaned the wounds as best I can. Now we wait and see if infection sets in." Emily nodded resolutely. "Then I'll wait with him." "Miss Lawson," Winters began hesitantly. "This isn't quite proper, Mr. Winters," Emily interrupted firmly. "I appreciate your concern for my reputation, but Lucas has no family here. Someone must care for him, and I intend to be that someone. If you're truly worried about propriety, perhaps Mrs. Hollis might join me as a chaperone." Winters recognized defeat when he saw it. "I'll send her over with some of your things." For the next 3 days, Emily rarely left Lucas's side. Mrs. Hollis did indeed come to serve as both chaperone and helper, spelling Emily for brief periods so she could rest. Timothy managed the store, coming each evening to report the day's business. The fever raged through the first night and into the second day. Emily bathed Lucas's face and chest with cool water, talking to him constantly though he remained unconscious. She told him about the store, about her plans for expansion, about her growing fondness for Helena despite its challenges. More intimately, in whispers when they were alone, she told him of her feelings, how in the short time she had known him, he had come to mean more to her than anyone ever had. "You must recover," she told him fiercely. "I refuse to lose you when I've only just found you." On the third night, the fever finally broke. Emily, dozing in a chair beside the bed, awoke to find Lucas watching her, his eyes clear for the first time since his arrival. "You're still here," he said hoarsely. Emily moved to sit on the edge of the bed, taking his hand in hers. "Of course I am. Where else would I be? I thought perhaps I'd dreamed you," Lucas admitted. "Or that you'd come to your senses about being associated with a half-breed who keeps getting himself shot." Emily frowned. "Don't speak that way. And don't you dare think I care one whit about what anyone in this town thinks of our association." Lucas studied her face. "How long have I been here?" 3 days, Emily told him. "Dr. Sullivan wasn't sure you'd survive the fever." "Takes more than a couple of bullets to kill me," Lucas said with a weak attempt at humor. "Who's minding your store?" "Timothy is managing quite well," Emily assured him. "The business won't collapse because I choose to care for an injured friend." "Friend," Lucas repeated, a question in his tone. Emily met his gaze steadily. "I hope we're more than friends, Lucas Maddox." A slow smile spread across his face. "So do I." Dr. Sullivan, checking on his patient shortly after, was pleased with Lucas's improvement. "The fever's broken and the wounds are healing clean. With proper care, you should make a full recovery." "How soon can I leave?" Lucas asked. "Not for at least a week," Sullivan said firmly. "You need rest and proper nourishment to regain your strength." Lucas looked ready to argue, but Emily laid a restraining hand on his arm. "You can stay at my house," she offered. "There's a small guest room. Mrs. Hollis will help care for you, and you'll recover much faster with proper meals and comfort than in a hotel room." Sullivan raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Winters, who had stopped by to check on them, looked scandalized. "Miss Lawson, I must protest," the lawyer began. "Your reputation is my own concern," Emily finished for him. "Lucas needs proper care, and I have a perfectly respectable home with Mrs. Hollis as chaperone. I see nothing improper in the arrangement." Winters sighed, recognizing the determined set of her jaw. "Your uncle always said you had a mind of your own. I see he wasn't exaggerating." 2 days later, Lucas was well enough to be moved to Emily's house. The guest room was small but comfortable, with a window overlooking the garden behind the store. Mrs. Hollis, who had gradually warmed to Lucas during the vigil at Dr. Sullivan's, prepared nourishing meals and fussed over him in a motherly way that amused Emily. As Lucas's strength returned, he and Emily spent long hours in conversation. Lucas finally told her the full story of his journey to and from the Blackfoot camp. Chief Running Elk had been satisfied with the goods Lucas delivered and had formally declared that the matter of Emily's captivity was closed. The attack on Lucas had come not from Blackfoot warriors, but from a band of renegade white men who preyed on travelers in the area. "They likely would have attacked anyone passing through that valley," Lucas assured her when he saw her distress. "It wasn't your fault. But if you hadn't been delivering those goods for me, I've faced worse dangers for less worthy causes," Lucas interrupted gently. "And I'd do it again if necessary." During his convalescence, Lucas also had time to consider Emily's business proposal. One evening, as they sat in the parlor after dinner, he broached the subject. "I've been thinking about your offer of a partnership in the store," he began. Emily looked up from her sewing, heart quickening. "And, if the offer still stands, I'd like to accept," Lucas said, "with some conditions." "What conditions?" Emily asked, setting aside her work. "First, that I maintain the freedom to travel when necessary, not just for the business, but because that's who I am. I can't be confined to town all the time." Emily nodded. "That's reasonable. And the second condition?" Lucas leaned forward in his chair, his expression serious. "That we're clear about what else might develop between us. Emily, I care for you deeply, more than I thought possible in such a short time, but I need to know if you're truly prepared for what being associated with me might mean." Emily met his gaze steadily. "I am. I've had ample time to consider it, Lucas. The town already gossips about us. Some disapprove, others support us. Either way, my mind is made up. My feelings for you are genuine and unwavering." Lucas's expression softened. "Even knowing that some doors may close to you. That some people will never accept us. Those aren't people whose approval I value," Emily said firmly. "I've spent too much of my life trying to please others, my parents, Boston society. I came west to live on my terms. Loving you is very much my choice." Lucas rose from his chair and moved to kneel before her, taking both her hands in his. "Then I have one more condition," he said softly. "That you allow me to court you properly, with the intention of making you my wife if you'll have me." Joy welled up in Emily's heart. "I accept all your conditions," she whispered. Lucas leaned forward and kissed her, a kiss far deeper and more passionate than their first. Emily responded eagerly, her arms wrapping around his neck as she pulled him closer. When they finally parted, both breathless, Lucas smiled. "I think Mrs. Hollis would be scandalized if she walked in right now." Emily laughed, feeling lighter than she had in years. "Perhaps we should announce our intentions soon, to preserve what remains of my reputation." The following week saw rapid changes at Lawson's general merchandise. With Lucas as partner, the store expanded its offerings to native customers, with Lucas traveling to nearby camps to establish trading relationships. His fluency in several tribal languages and his respectful approach opened doors that had been closed to Nathaniel Lawson. Emily, meanwhile, modernized the store's operations and expanded the selection of goods aimed at the growing number of women settling in the territory. Together, they created a business that served all of Helena's diverse population. Not everyone approved of their partnership, both professional and personal. Some customers stopped patronizing the store, unwilling to do business with a half-breed or the woman who openly associated with him. But for every customer lost, they gained two more who appreciated their fair prices and inclusive approach. Lucas and Emily were married that autumn in a small ceremony performed by the local preacher, with Timothy, Mrs. Hollis, and a few supportive friends in attendance. Morning Sky came from the Blackfoot camp, bringing a beautifully crafted wedding blanket as a gift from Chief Running Elk, a gesture of peace that moved both Emily and Lucas deeply. Their wedding night was spent in the small house behind the store, which Emily had transformed from her uncle's bachelor quarters into a cozy home. As they lay together in the quiet darkness, Emily rested her head on Lucas's chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "Are you happy?" Lucas asked, his fingers gently stroking her hair. "More than I ever imagined possible," Emily replied truthfully. "Though I never expected to find love because of a Blackfoot captivity." Lucas chuckled, the sound rumbling beneath her ear. "Life has strange paths, doesn't it? If not for that stagecoach attack, we might never have met." Then I suppose I should be grateful in a way, Emily mused, though I still mourn those poor men who died. As do I, Lucas said soberly, but their deaths led to something good at least. And we'll honor their memory by working toward better understanding between all the peoples of this territory. Emily raised herself on one elbow to look down at her husband's face, shadowed in the moonlight streaming through the window. Have I told you today that I love you, Lucas Maddox? His hand came up to cup her cheek. You have, but I don't mind hearing it again. I love you, she whispered, leaning down to kiss him. And I thank God every day that you spoke Blackfoot and had the courage to ride into that camp to save a woman you didn't even know. Best decision I ever made, Lucas murmured against her lips before pulling her close and demonstrating just how much he loved her in return. In the years that followed, Lawson and Maddox General Merchandise became one of the most successful businesses in Helena. Lucas's connections with the native tribes and Emily's sharp business acumen proved a powerful combination. They faced challenges: economic downturns, continued prejudice, the changing landscape of the territory as it moved toward statehood, but they faced them together. Their family grew with the birth of a son, Nathaniel, named for Emily's uncle, followed 2 years later by a daughter, Sarah, named for Lucas's mother. The children grew up with feet in both worlds, learning the languages and customs of their father's native heritage, as well as navigating the evolving society of Montana Territory. Lucas continued to travel regularly, but always returned eagerly to the home and family he had once thought beyond his reach. Emily managed the business, and their growing household with the same determination and intelligence that had first drawn Lucas to her. Together, they built a life that defied convention but embodied the true pioneer spirit of the American West. Sometimes, on summer evenings, they would sit on the porch of their home, a larger house they had built on the outskirts of Helena, as their family and prosperity grew, and watch the sunset paint the distant mountains gold and purple. In those quiet moments, Emily would often reflect on the strange twist of fate that had brought them together. You ever regret it? She asked Lucas one such evening, 20 years after they had first met. Their children were nearly grown now, their business thriving, their love deeper than ever. Regret what? Lucas asked, his hand finding hers as naturally as breathing. Coming to Helena, settling down, choosing this life with me, Emily elaborated. You were so reluctant at first. Lucas smiled, the lines around his eyes crinkling in the way she had come to love. Not for a single day, he assured her. I was afraid that I belonged nowhere, that I would never find acceptance or peace. You showed me I was wrong. Emily leaned against his shoulder, content. We built something good here, didn't we? We did, Lucas agreed, pressing a kiss to her temple. Something that will outlast us. And it did. The legacy of Lucas and Emily Maddox, their business, their children, and most importantly, their example of love that transcended the prejudices of their time, remained a part of Helena's history long after they were gone. Their story became a testament to the power of understanding across cultures, and the courage to follow one's heart against all odds. In the end, what had begun as a desperate negotiation for a captive's release had transformed into something far more profound. A love that helped heal the divisions of a fractured frontier and pointed the way toward a more inclusive future.